They didn't come from the same country or speak the same language. But Mathew Saad Muhammad and Yaqui Lopez had much in common. They grew up in places where normalized violence was a daily occurrence. And they got good at it because they had to. Don't judge them for being comfortable and adapting to their circumstances. You do what you have to get by in places like these. Yaqui Lopez was raised under a bull ring in Zacatecas, Mexico. Every day, the nickel-plated smell of blood filled his lungs as the matadors plied their violent trade above his residence. As a young man, Yaqui wanted to be a matador himself. At age 12, he catches a horn through his ankle that shatters both his ankle and dream. As he recovered, his thoughts turned to fighting his fellow man. At 15, his family crosses the border, and they settle in Stockton, a city which still retains its fighting reputation today. And throughout the 1970s, Yaqui started to prove himself the toughest light heavyweight in town. On the other side of the country, a boy, not even old enough to remember his own name, is led by his older brother out to Benjamin Franklin Parkway. In the city of brotherly love, his own brother abandoned him. That nameless child sat there until a concerned citizen called the cops. The police picked him up, unable to obtain any information from such a young child. They left him in the care of the Catholic nuns at St. Matthew's Parish in North Philadelphia.
No one came up to, claim me.
The nuns named the child Mathew Franklin after the saint and street where he was found. His life in the orphanage was a constant struggle between the Holy Ghost and a harsh reality. The second he left the walls of the parish, he was subject to the street life of Philadelphia. You walk to school in groups to protect yourselves from street gangs. Sometimes that wasn't even enough. Mathew had nobody to protect him, and so he got beat up and robbed routinely, until finally he accepted he couldn't beat a gang, so he joined one. Eventually, he led one. Mathew was born again in boxing. The gym became his monastery. He found drive and discipline and a rare peace of mind. He left the street life and began to make waves in the crowded pool of Philly's light heavyweight scene. They called him Miracle Mathew. He smiled when you hit him. Only the fans were left smiling when Mathew hit back. He built a reputation for getting nailed and coming back in a mid-round resurrection. Yaqui had a 2-year head start and quickly fought his way into a title shot. His first attempt at the title came against English champion John Conte.
To the target areas. Tried that punch timing, but he hasn't used that right hand yet.
Yaqui gave the Englishman problems with his long reach and insistent pace.
End of the third round.
Yaqui was on him from bell to bell.
By Lopez, he might have confused him.
But the Brit was proving himself up to the tall task.
Be surprised to see Jimmy Hill pick that right hand punch well. Doesn't seem that. But he's being owed.
The two brawled deep into the night.
Finnegan, one of their 2 fights last. See, there's still some power left in that Conte right. seen the fight the same as everybody.
and Yaqui came up just short on the judges' cards.
But that's it. John Conti retains his World Light Heavyweight Championship.
Meanwhile, Matt was also starting to make his mark. Had a growing tendency for getting into jaw-dropping brawls.
Round one of a schedule. Marvin Johnson in the white trunks against Mathew Franklin.
Marvin Johnson was a fearless, stumpy left who had to get in close to land. He came after Mathew like the Book of Mark. The mirrored stance meant an open lane for either man's power hand. Both orthodox and southpaw took advantage early and often. It quickly devolved into a majestic war. It was frantic, mutual violence. Mathew always seemed to take punches like he was charging up for something. It's the type of fight that takes years off your life and adds them onto your legacy. Mathew didn't lose those kinds of fights. The next year, Mathew and Yaqui meet for the first time in the city of brotherly love.
All three times came up short. Yaqui Lopez in blue trunks.
While Yaqui spent most of the first round looking, Mathew spent it establishing his jab.
Other punches were a bit.
Seems to be a fact-finding round.
Losses and June at the time, but he defeated Marvin Johnson. Superb.
By round 3, the fight is truly on. When a left hook makes Yaqui do a chicken dance.
He got hit with a right hand that has him doing funny things standing up.
Wow. I thought he pulled a groin muscle.
Yaqui tries to survive as he gets gored for the rest of the round.
Remember, you cannot be saved by the bell.
Round 4 starts with Yaqui coming forward, feinting, and parrying, pressuring the man that shook him to his boots.
Heavy trouble in round 3. Franklin gets left shoulder up. Oh, walked into a hook that time.
Good left hook.
Oh, good hook and right hand. Right.
Mathew's jab had more snap to it. Yaqui had reach. While Yaqui was working the body, Mathew was aiming for the head.
Going round 5. Whale of a fight. Franklin got to the midsection.
I mean, over the distance, it's a 12-round fight, and that is something to bear in mind when
Fighters, one thing, Lopez has a reputation.
which will bring blood if they're,
Cascading down the eye of Yaqui Lopez. Only moments before we
Mathew goes to the ropes.
right hand. Oh,
he just put the right hand.
oh, did he take a good shot?
As Yaqui lands a dozen clean punches in a row.
Matt Franklin is in bad shape against the ropes.
Yaqui Lopez has to pick his shot. He could.
Mathew smiles it off
That's the right uppercut. He's not using it.
Matt Franklin. Where do you see him? Fourth round.
and returns with his own combinations.
Back rack, and back comes Matt Franklin. He's got Yaqui Lopez in heavy trouble right in front of us, Jack. What a round.
He made a bad habit of the rope-a-dope. Mathew never had Muhammad Ali's defensive grace, but he had a heart and a chin, and he'd been through worse than this.
Well, yes, he's going to take away the maneuver that he's getting from Al Lopez.
And he is just trying to unload a couple of lefts to set up that right. Throw hook came underneath. It's to go in round 11. Franklin.
In round 11, with Yaqui moving like a half-bludgeoned zombie, the referee decides he's seen too much.
After the bell and Mathew Franklin. I'm the greatest! Jack, it's all yours.
I'm the greatest! Number one! I think we've heard that before somewhere, Matt. I'm me.
The next year, Marvin Johnson wins the championship and asks for Mathew to be his first title defense. This time, it took place in front of Marvin's home crowd in Indy.
He does that, which is sort of measured by those who have fought him and those who have been around him. The moves just beyond the halfway. Hard right hand.
It didn't take long for it to break out into a good old-fashioned firefight for those who like it raw.
To come back. It was expected to be a war, and that's what it is. Round is a short.
It was fought at a pace that turns an audience into a mosh pit. It is a hellacious war. And Mathew didn't lose those kinds of fights.
Grueling pace. Round 5 is over. He elects to defend against quite likely the Franklin. And Johnson then are more aggressive. Johnson then knew him because he's the man that beat me. Franklin just simply didn't have enough time to finish. Hard right hand. Johnson in trouble. Back into the rope. He's in serious trouble. Bell won't save him. Franklin, there's the bell.
Marvin Johnson, literally slipping in and out of consciousness between rounds, gets off his stool and keeps going.
They're certainly not standing in front of Mathew Franklin. More at this moment than he's taking.
Even barely alive, it took a horrific beating to stop him.
Another right hand to the face of Johnson. Johnson's in trouble on the rope. And down he goes in his corner. Johnson is down from an acute.
Mathew, having just won his world title, announces his conversion to Islam.
So the decision is this. Mathew Franklin stops Marvin Johnson 144 of the 8th round.
He takes the name Mathew Saad Muhammad. He defends his title 3 times before he meets again with an old friend from Mexico.
How he's really stood up. There's that body shot. A tremendous lift to the body.
Yaqui wins 6-1 since the first fight with Mathew, and now fought his way into a rematch with the champion.
Jack Cruz, Benny Casey, touching Muhammad Cruz jabs. And Muhammad is heavy body.
Each man knew what they were in for. Each man's conditioning was tip-top.
There is some blood over the right eye.
There was no other option with an opponent like this across from you. Yaqui was stone-faced as Anton Chigurh and pressed the pace early.
Certain to see it later in the month here in the tournament. And you notice that Yaqui has completely abandoned his three-fight plan. No more jabbing to be cut. Good jabbing now by Muhammad. Next round moving. Right on the top of the bridge of the nose of Yaqui Lopez. A cut open back in round 3. Well, we said he's back to moving
It was a firefight, a down-in-the-trenches battle defined by close personal violence.
That's what he should be doing, relying mainly on his jab to work inside because he's the fish and Muhammad equals strength. Alert our stations along the line.
The fight grew to a crescendo in the 8th. Yaqui bleeds from between the eyes, and Mathew chases him into the ropes behind his jab, throws his right hand as hard as he can, and breaks it on the top of Yaqui's skull. Mathew let his left go in an effort to keep pressure on and no-sell the break. But Yaqui came back sharp with short, powerful counters. Mathew shuts his offense down as Yaqui lands around 40 unanswered punches. Mathew just stands there, smiling that damned smile, before coming alive again. It was round of the year and the fight of the year. Round by round, the grueling pace took its toll on both. When fighters get lost in thoughtlessness, that's when the muscle memory makes the difference. The endless hours of work, away from the lights and the crowd. The dedication required to even go this deep would break most people. You don't get to this level of the fight game by being most people. As Mathew's shorts slowly dyed the same color of his trunks in the first fight, Yaqui seemed to have reached his limit, like the tide hitting its high water mark. After round 10, Yaqui was in the process of receding. It took 4 knockdowns, 14 rounds, and the toughest light heavyweight in history to stop him. But Yaqui Lopez would never win a world championship. They were warriors then. It didn't matter where they came from or what they did before, what language they spoke. It crosses all cultures and social boundaries. These were warriors.